Okay, we're just going to talk about truss rods here for a few minutes. Basically, a truss rod gives you control over the neck, okay, over the neck relief. So neck relief is basically the amount of bow, either this way or that way in the neck, okay. And ideally, what you want for playability is a slight relief or forward bow in the neck, right? So that the frets in the center of the fretboard are 8 or 10 thousandths of an inch below the string when the string is fretted at the first fret and at the fret where the neck joins the body. Okay, that makes the string a straight line over the frets. You have your neck just slightly bowed so that it's 8 to 10 thousandths over the center. All right. Truss rods come in, I guess 3 different types altogether. Old guitars, like the old Martin guitars back, pre-war, just had a steel channel, okay, in the neck. So no adjustability. It was just a channel that was in there, and it was glued in, so that it was solid. All right. The neck was kind of, preloaded a little bit. The channel was glued in place, and that maintained the rigidity of the neck. Okay. Then there were, I guess, single action truss rods. I don't have a single action. It kind of looks something like this. It's a channel, okay, with a rod in the channel. This channel here, it's a U channel, has a rod embedded. You can't see the rod because it's got tape over it, but basically the rod is put in, and in a single action truss rod, the rod is secured at one end so it cannot rotate, and the nut is adjusted at the other end. There's a washer on the nut, okay, so that it goes against the end of the channel. And basically when you tighten the rod, I had a wrench here a minute ago, so let me get it along. I'll show you. When you put your wrench in there and tighten the rod, and it doesn't take very much, clockwise, the rod will bend. So clockwise, and you can see that there's a bow. There's a bow in there, right? And it only took like half a turn to put that bow in. Once the nut came tight, a half a turn more and put the bow. So it doesn't take much to flex a truss rod, okay? This truss rod looks like a single action, but it's actually a double action, because when you rotate the nut the other way, like that, counterclockwise, the rod comes up. You can just see it coming up there now. It's bulging the tape, right? Okay. Truss rod goes in like that under the fretboard, and this bulge here will put the neck into more relief, so it'll make a bigger bow, right? You tighten it the other way, clockwise, and you put the neck into back bow because the channel pops up under the fretboard and forces the neck to curve that way, okay? This is actually a double action truss rod. I'll show you another double action that I like, and I'm putting it in the last, I put one in the last acoustic I made. This rod here, Stuart McDonald makes. It's got 2 rods, okay? When you turn it clockwise, I gotta get a wrench for that too. Hang on a second. When you adjust it clockwise, See? The top rod bows upward. So clockwise adjustment, that will go up against the fretboard and force the neck into a back bow. Counterclockwise adjustment does exactly the opposite. Now the bottom rod bulges down against the bottom of the neck and forces the neck into more relief. Okay, so this gives more control over the neck. Some people don't like double action truss rods. I think because when you're adjusting them, they twist, and some people think that they tend to make the neck twist. I don't think there's that much force in it myself. And also, the type of bowing is different. In a single action truss rod, the bowing occurs almost like a V. It's not a gentle bow. It's like a V in the center of the neck almost, right? But I mean, it creates a gentle bow in the neck. But the actual bow itself is more like a V. A bird just flew in here over my head. Anyway, with the double action truss rod, it's a more gentle bow, and it can change the nut action apparently. I've never seen that happen, but if you have a guitar when it's set up and there's no adjustment on the truss rod, and say the neck relief is 20 thousandths and you want to get it down to 8 or 10 thousandths, you use the truss rod here, the double action truss rod, to put a back bow in the neck so that the relief is 8 to 10 thousandths, and then when you check your nut action, the strings could be right down on the first fret, and that's because of the nature of the bowing in a double action truss rod. So some people like them, some people don't. I put one of these in the last guitar, last acoustic, and I found it really good. So this is a Gibson style truss rod. It's just a straight, I think it's 3/16 rod, I believe. Anyway, it's fairly flexible. It's a steel rod, just a straight rod. And what you do with that is you put it in a narrow channel, so the nut goes up on this end. This end here is anchored, so it can't spin. And you have to make the truss rod channel with a depression in the center. So the truss rod channel is not the same depth the whole way along. It's actually scalloped out in the center. So when the rod is put in, it's put in with a little bend in it like that, okay? When you put it in the channel, when you install it, you have to put a strip of wood, a maple strip in, to keep the rod into relief like that, okay? So then you put the strings on. The strings put more relief in the neck, and then when you tighten the nut up here, you straighten the rod, and it forces the neck into back bow, or it forces the neck into back so that you get the correct amount of relief, and that loads the rod. So ideally, when you have a truss rod in the guitar, you want the rod loaded, and you want the neck, obviously the force of the strings on the neck. So you want the two forces counteracting. If the rod is sitting in the neck and there's no load on it, then you just have a floating neck with the string force pulling. So the neck then is more susceptible to movement and changes with temperature, humidity, that sort of thing. So you have to set up your truss rod so that it's loaded, and then the string force counteracts that. Okay, so the two forces are opposing each other. The way you do it, you have if you're setting up your frets, okay, after you install the fretboard, okay, you adjust the truss rod to put the neck into a very slight back bow. So there's a little bit of a bump here. Then you level your frets, okay? All right. You release the force on the truss rod so that the neck goes flat. So now you've got a very slight depression here in the fret surface. Install the neck, put your strings on. The strings create a little more forward force on the neck, okay, pulling this way. So now you've got an accentuated relief, okay? such that you have to tighten the truss rod to bring the neck into the relief that you're looking for, okay? So they're by doing it that way, by putting the neck in the back bow before you flatten your frets, you're ensuring that you're going to have the rod loaded when it's, installed and the strings are on, okay? So I don't know if that makes sense, but basically, you don't want a truss rod sitting loose in the neck. For one thing, it can rattle. And then for the other thing, it is that, the neck can be more unstable. So if you move your guitar around, you take it from one environment to another, you're going to be tuning it all the time, right? Or adjusting your truss rod manually, because the action will change. That's truss rods.